When analyzing what drives a nation's wealth, economists continually return to a single fiercely debated variable: the correlation between long working hours and ultimate prosperity. The standard assumption is straightforward. The more hours a population spends working, the higher the national wealth climbs. Time on the clock is viewed as the primary engine. But while labor is obviously required, pushing hours beyond a certain threshold inflicts systemic harm. To evaluate this accurately, we have to separate immediate short-term production from long-term sustainable economic output. National economic success relies not on extracting the maximum raw hours from a population, but on engineering sustainable labor frameworks. The traditional approach to this equation is what we can call the labor volume model. This chart visualizes the model's foundational assumption. It projects a direct, linear correlation. More time spent at work equals a proportionally higher number of tasks completed by the workforce. Under this system, industries meet tight manufacturing deadlines simply by applying sheer force of time. If a quota isn't met, the shift is extended. The labor volume model treats human productivity as a strict mathematical constant that scales infinitely with the clock. To see this model in practice, we can examine the rapid industrialization of nations like Japan and South Korea. These countries' rapid economic development relied heavily on extended working hours. Dense corporate environments were explicitly structured to maximize time employees spent at desks. This approach was even more pronounced in manufacturing. On endless assembly lines, extending the shift directly increased the daily output of physical goods. Heavy industries leveraged this to capture global market share. Operations like South Korean shipbuilding yards scale output through an immense volume of physical labor hours. While this method effectively jumpstarts an industrializing economy, it builds a structure that requires an unsustainable input: infinite human endurance. Working longer doesn't equate to working efficiently. As you extend hours, expected productivity growth plateaus. We quickly hit diminishing returns. Extended hours trigger burnout and stress, registering as measurable economic detractors. As physical and mental fatigue set in, workforce motivation drops. This degrades task quality, dragging overall productivity downward. Hidden macroeconomic costs emerge. As workforce health declines, healthcare expenses for workers and their corporate employers surge. Beyond a specific threshold, demanding extra hours actively destroys efficiency and drains corporate resources rather than adding to the bottom line. If we look at alternative economic structures, a highly effective contrast emerges in Europe. Nations like Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands operate under a completely different set of assumptions regarding labor and output. This represents the efficiency balance framework. These economies achieve sustained growth without demanding extended, grueling schedules from their populations. The mechanism enforcing this is legal. These countries utilize strict labor laws that actively cap the total number of hours an employee can work weekly. These nations rank consistently among the world's most prosperous economies. The data indicates they maintain this status directly because they restrict working hours, preserving the integrity of their workforce. This flowchart tracks the causal sequence. Strict time limits enforce rest, ensuring employee well-being. This physical and mental state allows for high per-hour productivity. Furthermore, a well-rested mind has the cognitive bandwidth required to generate actual corporate innovation. In modern manufacturing, like this optimized German automotive plant, the focus shifts entirely to precision and streamlined processes during a shorter, intensely focused shift. When workers have sufficient time for leisure, they return to the facility with restored focus and higher intrinsic motivation. This combination of creativity and employee loyalty reduces turnover and builds institutional knowledge, feeding directly into the long-term strength of the economy. By prioritizing rest, the efficiency balance model transforms the workforce into high-yield assets, maximizing output per hour rather than maximizing the total volume of hours worked. It is accurate to say that extending shifts under a volume-based model is a highly effective way to generate an immediate spike in short-term production. However, extracting labor without adequate recovery periods degrades the workforce, ensuring that the initial spike is followed by a long-term decline in efficiency. Betting an economy on maximum human endurance is an unsustainable strategy for a modern industrialized nation. The math points to a clear directive: To secure prosperity, nations must shift their focus away from extending total working hours and optimize their systems to improve output per hour. Sustainable economic growth requires structurally treating worker well-being as the primary fuel for efficiency. Prioritizing a healthy work-life balance serves as a strict macroeconomic imperative for national success. To optimize your own study hours effectively, check out today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by the IELTS Focus 084-770-5973, an English center specializing in IELTS preparation.